All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Lanite. All right. Okay, David. Thank you. Good afternoon. Merci. Okudua. All right. So let's start quickly. We hope that others will join. We have just 50 students online. So today we'll be looking at cloud-based computing or cloud-based software. So that's basically what we're looking at today, right? So we'll start by introducing ourselves to what cloud means. Now, of course, I'll just start with a digression. Now, there was a debate in the House of Representatives, and the debate borders on IT infrastructures. And they were saying that there's a need to migrate documents online. And one of the representatives stood up and I said, if we migrate things to the cloud, what about how do we take care of rainfall? So, well, we could pardon him to the extent of his knowledge in computing. So they felt cloud is just the sky that you see there. And base his argument on that. And thank God for IT experts. That's how they would have thrown a very good law overboard because of some level of illiteracy, if I may say, or not doing due diligence. So we'll look at what cloud is and what is it really made up of. So what is important in software development and deployment, and of course, some of the advantages, disadvantages, and some of the detours in the use of the cloud-based software. We'll also be looking at a bit of cloud-based terminologies or categories. We're going to be looking at platforms. We're going to be looking at software as a service, platform as a service, or as an infrastructure as a service. So these are the things to be considering as we journey through the class. All right. So let's start. So the cloud basically is made up of very large number of remote servers that are offered for rent by companies that owns these servers. So the cloud is not just the outside that you're seeing, but it's a terminology used in computing to depict large numbers of remote servers. And I'm sure you know what servers are. And of course, these servers are put up for rent. Now, cloud-based servers are virtual servers. That means they are not hardware. They are implemented in software rather than in hardware forms. Now, individuals can rent as many servers as you need to run your software. Run your software on this server and make them available to your customers. So you could rent a server for several things, for your personal businesses. You could also rent it for extensibility of what you have and a host of other things. Now, your customers can access these servers from their own computers or other networked devices, such as a tab or a TV. And I'm sure you know that we have smart TVs now. So cloud servers can be started up and shut down as demand changes. Now, the demands that changes, we're going to look at those demands. Now, you may rent a server, install your own software, or you may pay for access to a software product that are available on the cloud, right? So you could, I think you have the Google Play Store. You have a number of apps being hosted in the cloud that you could easily download for your use at any time, right? Some of them are free, and some of them are, I think you have a rentage on them, probably monthly or yearly payments. And also the cloud server have some characteristics, or the cloud software has some characteristics. The first one is it is scalable, it is elastic, and of course, it has to be resilient. Now, so let's look at these three properties. Scalability is almost like elasticity, but with a caveat. So scalability reflects the ability of your software to cope with increasing numbers of users. So as the load on your software increases, your software automatically adopts or adapts so that the system performance and response time is maintained. Now, I'm sure that some of you probably have noticed that on your mobile phone. Now, for instance, your mobile phone may have a total memory of about 100 gig, right? But if you are doing some kind of deep clean, for those of you who can do the deep clean option on your phone, you will find out that some files are bigger than the available memory that you have on your platform, that's your mobile device. So how did you get all this extra memory without installing of even when you have installed your SD card, you could also have that. You could not just have as much memory as you have. So I feel that there's an option that you could run on the cloud, or some of your software may be temporarily moved to the cloud just to make your system scalable in such a way that it can continue to function up until there's a pop-up on your screen that you're running out of memory. Actually, your memory had gone, but it was just still observing the characteristics of scalability by just increasing and just accommodating most usage, is storing probably app data, storing intermediate values and all that up until you stop. Then the pop-up comes up, your WhatsApp is running out, your this space is running out, so you can now clean or probably do something about the memory just to get some of those junks out of your space. So one of the greatest characteristics of cloud software is that they have to be scalable. They have to continue to work irrespective of the numbers of users available. Then elasticity is related to scalability, but also allows for scaling down as well as scaling up. So instead of you to have a server rented permanently or perpetually, if the server is not needed, then it can release some servers and say, look, this is not needed anymore. So it's able to scale up to meet up with increasing users, and by itself, it's able to scale down to cater for lower rents for you. That, okay, after some time, you didn't use these resources, so you don't have to pay for it. Resilience means that you can design your software architecture to tolerate server failure. In one of the lectures we had, we talked about how to cope with server failures. or uptime. And one of the major ways of doing that is to introduce redundancy. But so you can make several copies of your software concurrently available. If one of these fail, the other continues to provide the service. So instead of making hardware, sensors, and other things as your redundancy comes in front of several copies of the products or of the services or the software that you are providing, so that you don't just get shut out. So we want to look at the cost benefit or the benefit of using cloud for software development. So the benefits includes costs, startup time, server choice, and distributed development. Now, as for cost, you avoid the initial capital cost of hardware procurement. Now, to set up the hardware, you have to get a building, you have to get power source, cooling devices, and a host of others. And of course, it will take a lot of planning for you to get this up and running. But if you are using a cloud-based service, it reduces its costs. Though, of course, those costs will come up later if you choose, but it's something that can, at least you can start your setup quickly, right? And you continue up undisturbed. Now, of course, startup time, you don't have to wait for the hardware to be delivered before you can start work. Using the cloud, you can have servers up and running in just a few minutes, as opposed to the hardware servers that will take you a lot more time. Now, server choice, if you find that the servers you are renting are not powerful enough, you can upgrade to more powerful systems, right? You can add servers for short-time requirements, such as load testing. Now, distributed development. If you have a distributed development team, especially those who are working from different locations, all teams members have the same development environment and can seamlessly share all information. Now, that is what is, that's what COVID has pushed us into, where we have to work remotely, right? So individuals can access the same server and continue to develop each of the modules that they have been assigned to develop up until the work is done. So they can just come for 1 or 2 scrums to get the work tidied up. So these are the advantages of having to deploy cloud servers. Next, the cloud server. So a cloud server runs on an underlying physical computer, and it's made up of an operating system plus a set of software packages that provide the server functionality required. Now, a virtual server is a standalone system that can run on any hardware in the cloud. Now, the run anywhere characteristic is possible because the virtual server has no external dependency. Now, if you have had to install some packages, especially, of recent, I was trying to install a software. It's called Ontology Web Language. It had a lot of dependency, right? And I had to go, of course, those dependencies were not made available with that product or with that software. So if it needs a Java library, if it needs any other libraries, I have to download those libraries and install them independently. However, if the software were to be hosted on a virtual server, all that is needed about it would have been hosted alongside with that software. But this runs anywhere characteristic is possible because the virtual machine has no external dependency. So that's one of another good reason why you need to use cloud servers. Now, virtual machines running on physical server hardware can be used to implement the virtual servers. Now, an hypervisor provides hardware emulation that simulates the operation of the underlying hardware. So the hypervisor is just a layer in the implementation of virtual software. It's just a little bit above the operating system of the user as accessing the cloud server. Now, if you use a virtual machine to implement virtual servers, you have exactly the same hardware platform as a physical server. If you use a virtual machine to implement virtual servers, you have exactly the same hardware platform as a physical server. So on the long run, you may not need, as it were, to get your server. It as if you are okay with the condition of service of those providing the servers for you. So this is a diagram showing the implementation of a virtual server as a virtual machine. So you have the server hardware on it, you have your host OS, then this is the layer of the hypervisor that enables you to access the virtual server. And of course, we have different softwares located on the individual guests, or maybe what the individual guests can access, right? So it depends on individual. So, however, okay, let's continue. So, we want to look at container-based virtualization. Now, if you are running a cloud-based system with many instances of application or services, right? These all use the same operating system. You can use a simpler virtualization technology called containers. Let's look at that again. If you are running a cloud-based system with many instances of application or services, these all use the same operating system. Now you can use a simpler virtualization technology called container. Now, using containers accelerates the process of deploying virtual servers on the cloud. How or why? Now, containers are usually megabytes in size, whereas virtual machines are gigabytes. Containers can be started and shut down in a few seconds rather than the few minutes required for a virtual machine. Now, containers are an operating system virtualization technology that allows independent servers to share a single operating system. They are particularly useful for providing isolated application service. So the need why we need containers is that they provide isolated application service, whereas each user sees their own version of the application. So if you have different levels of need of individuals, for instance, I'm not so sure, but I'm aware that what's his name? WhatsApp has different varieties. Also Facebook, right? You have a standalone WhatsApp, then you have business WhatsApp. Then for Facebook, you have the whole installation of the application, and also you have the Facebook Lite. I think so. So depending on what you need, the version of the application that you need is given to you. So each of these applications is put in individual containers. Now, this is a figure showing how you can provide isolated services using containers. Now, this is container 1. You have these softwares, container 2, and you have these other softwares for different users. Now, when you have containers, of course, there's a need for management, right? And that's where the issue of Docker comes in. So an open source project called Docker provided a standard means of container management that is fast and easy to use. Docker is a container management system that allows users to define the software to be included in a container as a Docker image. So if you're accessing a server or a cloud-based server, you could inform the service provider of probably you want to customize the list of software that you want to use, that you just do not want to have a pool, unnecessary, what do you call it, information overload when you are searching for some software, right? So you could, in a way, customize the types of the software that you want to use, right? So Docker as a management system allows the user to define the software to be included in a container, and it's represented as a Docker image. We're going to be looking at all this definition shortly. It also includes a runtime system that can create and manage containers using these Dockers. Now, I'm sure that, well, some of you would have done some things on memory management, and of course, runtime management system is of interest. Well, I don't know the course that you are being taught runtime management system. So this is a Docker container system. You have the Docker client and the Docker files. You have the Docker org, which is the registry. Then you have the Docker host, where you have the Docker daemon and images and the containers itself. So let's look at each of these elements one after the other, right? So the Docker daemon, now this is a process that runs on a host server, right? And it is used to set up, start, stop, and monitor containers, as well as building and managing local images, right? So what are local images, or what are images? Now, images are just a Docker file. A Docker file is interpreted to create a Docker image, which is a set of directories with the specified software and data installed in the right places. So images are set up to be runnable Docker application. We're going to see that shortly. So this is a process that runs on the host server and is used to set up, start, stop, and monitor containers, as well as building and managing local images. Now, Docker client, this software is used by developers and system managers to define and control containers. Docker files. Docker files are defined. Okay, Docker file defines runnable applications. So runnable applications are just images, especially local images, that you have chosen to be in your container as a series of setup commands that specify the software to be included in a container as specified by the user. Now, each container must be defined by an associated Docker file. All right. So the image, that's a Docker file, is interpreted to create a Docker image. Now, which is a set of directories with the specified software and data installed in the right places. So images are set up to be runnable Docker applications. Docker ops. This is a registry of images. That means the software that you have put in a container that you want it to be customized for you. that have been created. Now, this may be reused to set up containers or as a starting point for defining new images. So what are containers? Containers are executing images. An image is loaded into a container and the application defined by the image starts execution. So containers may be moved from server to server without modification and replicated across many servers. You can make changes to a Docker container, e.g. by modifying the files. That means adding more software that you need to it. But you then must commit these changes to create a new image and restart the container. So simply put, a Docker is a management system for the container, right? It defines or it guides, okay, how do you select the images that you want to customize? How do you group them? How do you execute them? And how would you point to them? How you will update them? How you could remove software from the container. So that's what the container and the Docker scenario is all about. So what are Docker images? So Docker images are directories that can be archived, shared, and run on different Docker hosts. Everything that is needed to run a software system, including the binaries, the libraries, the system to etc., is included in the directory. You can see this is different from a situation that I gave earlier where I needed to install the ontology web language, right? Now, its dependencies were not added to that software or to that application. So I had to start visiting different sites to start downloading its dependencies. Other libraries I need to call to work had to be downloaded in different different platforms. However, using Docker, especially when you have containers, you would have put everything that is needed by the image, the machine code, the libraries it will call, the system tools is included in that directory itself. So a Docker image is a base layer, usually taken from the Docker registry with your own software and data added as a layer on top of this. The layered model means that updating Docker application is fast and efficient. Each update to the file system is a layer on top of the existing system, right? So for instance, if you have a Docker image, right, and you need to add maybe a dependency of the software you need to install on that image, so you just form another layer on top of it. But what it means that they are grouped just like a physical standpoint, they are together. Now, to change an application, all you have to do is to ship the changes that you have made to its image, often just a small number of files. So if you have to remove softwares, then you have to update the Docker image as it were. So what are the benefits of using containers? Now, they solve the dependencies, right? You don't have to worry about the libraries and other softwares on the application server being different from those on your development server. Now, as you are aware that of course, as a rule, any assembly language code that you have written and it has been converted to a machine code, such machine code cannot run on another microprocessor. So with the use of containers, that means you could implement something that you have, you could install what you have developed on, let's say, the Intel 8085. You could install it on a Motorola 68000 microprocessor or Intel 8086 or 8086 processors, right? Now, sometimes you may have to, for instance, if you download the software that is meant for a 32-bit OS or an MP, there may be, in fact, it may not even get installed, but we are seeing a development where there's just a simple way where we some of those applications that either to have not been able, that we have not been able to install directly because it's 32-bit on a 64-bit system or a 6-bit system, it's gradually getting to probably a thing of the past. So instead of shipping your product as a standalone software, you can ship a container that includes all of its support software that your product needs. So of course, this also reduces the stress on the person who is buying your software, right? So they provide a mechanism for software portability across different clouds. Docker containers can run on any system or cloud provider, whereas the Docker daemon, where the Docker daemon or daemon is available. So there's what we call interoperability, as it were, with the mechanism of containers. So they provide an efficient mechanism for implementing software services and so support development of service-oriented architecture, right? So now in a programming paradigm, service-oriented coding just means that instead of having to develop everything from the scratch, you just call a service, you integrate it into your system. Now, it doesn't have to be that you have to start creating all the dependency, right? So all the services needed by that library is already included with it. So which encourages more of service-oriented programming then, which supports service-oriented architecture for cloud servers. So they simplify the adoption of DevOps. Now, this is an approach to software support where the same team are responsible for both developing the software and supporting the operational software. So we want to look at these different services. So everything as a service. Now, the idea of a service that is rented rather than owned is fundamental to cloud computing, right? So infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Of course, there's a last one, but this is not a networking class, but it's just for mention. So infrastructure as a service. Now, cloud provider offers different kinds of infrastructure service, such as a computer service, a network service, and a storage service that you can use to implement virtual servers. So infrastructure can be offered to you as a service, right? And this can be used for the implementation of your server. Platform as a service. Now, this is an intermediate level where you use libraries and frameworks provided by the cloud provider to implement your own software, right? Now, this provides access to a range of functions, including your DBs. Now, software as a service. Your software product runs on the cloud and it is accessed by different users using their browsers and mobile app, of course, at a cost. And this cost can be monthly, can be yearly, or depending on the rates or the model that you have adopted for their payments or their for using your service. So this is how it's represented. You have this software as a service, or platform as a service as the intermediate, infrastructure as a service, then the cloud data center. So this image also represents the management responsibilities for infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. So you see, managed by software provider, the software as a service is managed by software provider. The application service, which is the DB, they are managed by the software provider. This is also managed by there's a cloud management service managed by the software provider, but the basic computational service is managed by the cloud vendor. So software as a service. So increasingly, software products are being delivered as a service rather than installed on the buyer's computer. If you deliver your software product as a service, you run the software on your server, right? Which you may rent from a cloud provider. So you can rent a server, put up your software, then it can be downloaded by clients or customers. Now, as customers don't have to install software that they have access, that they access the remote system through, customers don't have to install software and they access the remote system through a web browser or a dedicated mobile app. So there are different software that you can host online that could just be called whenever it is needed to be used. So it doesn't have to be resident on my system as such. For instance, I think if you look at, if you want to look at the weather forecasts, right? Of course, some of these weather forecasting softwares are available and you can install it. But instead of you having that installed on your system, which in some ways consume your memory or slows down your system, an option you can do is to just probably using your mobile app or maybe a web browser. I don't know the web browser that is popular, but of course you could use, well, I don't know, Firefox or any Chrome, right? You just call the library or maybe the application that can predict or forecast the weather of the area that you have found yourself. Now, the payment model for software as a service is usually a subscription model, right? Now, users pay a monthly fee to use the software rather than buy it outrightly. Now, you see, this business model is what ran Germany down. You see, those days, by the time you buy any, let's say, maybe any utensils made by Germany or by the Germans, there's a propensity that you use these stuffs for a very long time. But a time came when we have to start doing like pay as you go. Now, it's not necessarily pay as you go, because if you buy a new car made in China, there's a possibility, or made from China, there's a possibility that in the next 3 years, you would have changed one part or the other, right? So in a way, though you have bought the car outrightly, but you are still adopting a pay-as-you-go model, technically. So this is software as a service. You have the software users or the customer. You have the service provider, where the softwares are stored, where individual servers can, individual users can access using their what's the name? Their mobile app, right? Then this is the cloud provider who enables the software user to host his or her server on the cloud infrastructure. So what are the benefits of software as a service for software product provider? So we want to look at the benefits that this young man here, the software provider in the middle, has using maybe hosting his product as a service. So benefits of software as a service for software product provider. So there's increased cash flow. Then of course you can get people to update their software instead of having to just always buy new ones. So you're in control of updates of your product, and all customer receives the update at the same time. So you avoid the issues of several versions being simultaneously used and being maintained at different levels, right? Now, this reduces your costs and makes it easier to maintain a consistent software code base. Now, continuous deployment. You can deploy new versions of your software as soon as changes have been made and tested. This means you can fix bugs quickly so that your software reliability can continue to improve. Of course, payment flexibility. Of course, there's also this 1 month trial before you pay. Well, of course, some of us are falling. Well, you have tried some of these where they say use for 7 days or use for 1 month. Then when it's 1 month and it's time to pay, you will just uninstall it and try to install it again. And of course, probably they will blacklist you or something. But if it's a product of interest, they may still allow you to use at least just to look at the functionality. You determine the advantages that you feel you can derive from it. Of course, data collection, you can easily collect data on how the product is used and so identify areas for improvement. Now, if you go to, I think Google Store, now once you click on any app to be downloaded, you see some, I think users review or customers review. So you see what people who have installed it in time past have to say about these the products or the app you're about to download, either for free or at a cost. Now, some software, of course, the claim of what they can do may be spurious. So they'll just tell you this thing can measure your blood pressure, can measure your weight, and something that can measure your weight, they will tell you it has to be installed on your mobile phone. Now the question is, what is the interface between your leg and the phone? Are you supposed to match the screen of your phone to get your weight? Or how do they want to do it? So some apps are like that. As a matter of fact, I've seen one that says it wants to measure weight. So in fact, I had to look at it critically. Okay, you want to measure my weight? I do not have any sensor that could be connected like synchronously with your app. So how do you want it to be? So you see, the review of other people will help you to save you time and of course save you data from installing softwares that are not in tandem or they are not even good enough for your use. So these are the advantages that the software customer will have. Sorry, let's go back. That as the software product provider we gain using service as software as a service. So the advantage is you can access using mobile, laptop, desktop. So there's you can be ubiquitous in your use. No upfront cost for software or server. Immediate software update is available. reduce software management costs, so you don't have to develop new softwares. Now, privacy or regulatory issues for some countries, right? Network constraints, security concern. Now, network constraints has to do with some of us have 4Gs in our area. Some, well, I don't know if they have started deploying the 5G as it were. Then, of course, there are security concerns. Then loss of control over updates. Then service lock-in. Then data exchange. Now, this service lock-in, it's becoming rampant. There's a software that in fact, I had to go to the Google Play Store to install it deliberately. Now, all of a sudden, it will just pop up on my screen and I will not be able to do anything. It will tell me next, and you just be following it next, next. I was wondering, I didn't request for this, right? It's a product from the phone manufacturer. I think it's iTeam or whatever. And I don't like the way it just configures all the icons on my phone. I just want flat icons, as in no stories, just black and white, so that I will see what I'm doing, not all this decoration. So it kept forcing me to do that. I will go to the app property. I will force it to stop. As soon as I'm coming back, it will say next, next. So I had to go to the source and I uprooted it from there. Well, I'm still waiting for it to tell me to install it. But of course, I've always denied it access to my phone. So there can be a service lock-in in that direction. So let's look at it. So data storage and management issues for software as a service. The first one is regulation, data transfer, data security, data exchange. Now, some countries such as the EU have strict laws on the storage of personal information. Now, yeah, I think this is quite rampant, especially countries like Nigeria. You go to buy some stuff at a store. Now they don't have a POS, and they will tell you to make transfers. Then they will tell you to give you a number. Now, of course, most of us have made the mistake of linking our numbers, that's our, what's the name? Our accounts with our mobile number, and that's our primary number. So before we got a second SIM, we had submitted the phone numbers as connected to our account. So when you go there, they will tell you to give them your number. So they will write the amount you transfer, they will write the first and the last digit of your this, and they will collect your number. So I told them, look, if anything peradventure happens to my account, I think you'll be held liable. So it took a lot of time before, okay, let me get a second SIM. So instead of giving them my primary number, I just give them the other number. At least they just want to reach me, that's all. It's not that they want to do anything with my account. So some countries have strict laws on what you can store, because using some of this quasi information, you can really detect the identity of an individual, just guessing here and there. Now, of course, there are some standard of presentation of information, especially for countries like US. You can easily track anybody online. When you have a social security number, this number, it's almost constant for all of them. So if you're able to get just 2 of those values, then you'll be able to track down the individual, his bank account, and everything. So that's why Hush Puppy was able to perform a lot of miracles on their this COVID relief and their tax refunds, right? So it's just the use of the quasi information, you get it, and you're into the person's whatever. So this may be incompatible with the laws and regulation of the countries where the software as a service provider is based. Now, if a provider cannot guarantee that their storage location conforms to the laws of the customer's country, businesses may be reluctant to use their products. So this is what you have to consider if you are hosting software as a service. Then data transfer. Now, if software used involves a lot of data transfer. The software response time may be limited by the network speed. Now, this is a problem for individuals and smaller companies who can't afford to pay for very high-speed network connections. Of course, as I'm here, if you have noticed, I'm connected on 2 devices. Now, if one device goes off, I continue on the next. This consuming a lot of data anyways, but I'm introducing a redundancy just to get things going. So if what we need to share, for instance, if all of us have to put on our videos, there's a possibility that there will be a drag, and maybe the lectures may not have been delivered clearly, or just I can't hear you, I can't do this. Also, data security. Companies dealing with sensitive information, especially medical related information, banking details, and personal information, may be unwilling to hand over the control of their data to an external software provider. As we have seen from a number of high-profile cases, even large cloud providers have had security breaches. You can't assume that they always provide better security than the customer's own server. So data security is of importance. And as such, as a provider of software service, you should take this as very, very, very important. Data exchange. If you need to exchange data between a cloud service and other services or local software application, this can be difficult unless the cloud service provides an API that is accessible for external use. So let's look at the design issue for software delivered as a service. So we have local or remote processing capability, authentication, information leakage, multi-tenant or multi-instance database management. So let's look at that. For local or remote processing, a software product may be designed so that some features are executed locally in the user's browser or mobile app, and some on a remote server. Local execution reduces network traffic and so increases user response speed. This is useful when users have a slow network connection. So, of course, when you are designing a system, or when you are designing your software as a service on the platform, these are the things you need to consider, at least in solving one of the problems we have earlier identified of slow connectivity. You could have a shared processing platform where some processes are done on the user's system or device, and the other is done on the server. Now, local processing increases the electrical power needed to run the system. Authentication. If you set up your own authentication system, users have to remember another set of authentication credentials. Yeah, can you still hear me, please? Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I think I can see some response. All right. Thank you, Arize. Thank you, Chinedu. Merci Okudwa, Mr. Laniton, Obafemi Kazim. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Nasir. Korede. I was looking for Muyi today. So Muyi, thank you. We have been looking for you. Ogochuku Olayinka, thank you. So let's continue. All right, thank you, Mr. Muyi, for thanking me. All right, so if you set up your own authentication system, excuse me, users have to remember another set of authentication. And of course, for some of us, we are quite reluctant. We're not reluctant, but it gives us a lot of stress having to remember a lot of passwords here and there, right? So many systems allow authentication using the user's Google, Facebook, or LinkedIn credentials. So in order to overcome this, you have, at least you have, probably you have a particular Google account. So if, instead of you having to start putting up new credentials, you just say sign in through a known account that has been attached to you. So we can rely on the information you have given to Google for us to link you up with the service that we want to provide. So for business products, you may need to set up a federated authentication system, which delegates authentication to the business where the user works. So you don't have to probably take responsibility for all the authentication that needs to be done. You can delegate it to another person or a smaller unit to take care of while you face more important stuff. So information leakage. If you have multiple users from multiple organizations, a security risk is that information leak from one organization to the other. Now, of course, you have this happening a lot of times, where the information you have considered to be sacred in your own organization just goes out, maybe because of shared infrastructure, goes out or get leaked to another organization. And I feel, well, with due respect to Sarah Reporter, I think they benefit from this kind of system. So there are a number of different ways that this can happen. So you need to be very careful in designing your security system to avoid these leakages. So multi-tenant or multi-instance system. In a multi-tenant system, all customers are served by a single instance of the system and a multi-tenant database. In a multi-instance system, a separate copy of the system and database is made available for each user. So as a developer, what would you rather choose? Are you going to choose the multi-system or multi-tenant or multi-instance? So that's the second assignment of the assignment for today. So as a developer, which of these will you choose? A multi-tenant and or a multi-instance system? Give your reasons to support your thoughts and arguments. All right. So let's continue. Excuse me. So for the multi-tenant system, a multi-tenant system database is partitioned so that customer companies have their own spaces or space and can store and access their own database or their own data. Now there's a single database schema defined. Okay, sorry, I think there's a message. Let me see what the person has written. Second or first assignment. Oh, well, as it will please you, let's call it first assignment for today. All right. Thank you, Mr. Henry Oyezi. Sorry if I murdered the name. All right, so, excuse me. So there is a single database schema defined by the software as a service provider that is shared by all the system users. Items in the database are tagged with a tenant identifier representing a company that has stored data in the system. The database access software uses this tenant identifier to provide logical isolation, which means that users seems to be working with their own database. Now, of course, some of you would have done a bit on pointer technologies, pointer data type, or lookup tables or libraries, right? So the database access software uses the tenant identifier to point at the location allotted for that company. So, and this company, we have a field that they own the database, but actually they are sharing database with several people, but they have a number given to them that points to the item that they have stored on a database. So let's look at what it looks like. So you have the stock management, an example of multi-tenant database. So you have a tenant T down to T516 to T973. So these are the keys that have been assigned to them. Then these are the items. And the item also points to the stock and the supplier and the day of order. So if you look at this individual feels that they are enjoying the whole paraphernalia of the software, but actually what they are doing is just to have one space allotted to them with something being pointed at. So let's assume that this guy wants to access something like this, so they can, well, so in essence, so this tenant T, what is it, T973 is giving this unique ID and this key. So if this tenant needs to access the database, he quotes this key and he can get access to some of these. So you see some of these keys being repeated. Well, that's an example of collision in hash table, where it's beyond the scope of this class. It's something on, I think it's on the algorithm or so. Let me clear. Okay. So close. So what are the advantages of multi-tenant database? Of course, you have a good resource allocation. So resource utilization. Now the SAS provider has control of all the resources used by the software and can optimize the software to make effective use of these resources. Security. Multi-tenant database have to be designed for security because the data for all customers is held in the same database, right? They are therefore likely to have fewer security vulnerabilities than standard database products. Security management is simplified as there is only a single copy of the database software to be patched if a security vulnerability is discovered. Now, as a student of software system or software engineering, do you agree with this security architecture being deployed in multi-tenant database? So that's second assignment for today. As a student of software systems or software engineering, do you agree with the thoughts of the software systems being defined here? So update management. So it is easier to update a single instance of software rather than multiple instances. Updates are delivered to all customers at the same time. So all of them use the latest version of the software about the same time. All right, so what are the disadvantages? Inflexibility. So customers must all use the same database schema, right, with limited scope for adapting this schema to individual needs. So we explain, let me see, I think I have, excuse me, sir. The assignment isn't clear. That's serious, so So give me a few seconds, please. All right, so what I'm explaining is this. Where is that? For me, here. All right, look at advantages of multi-tenant database. Now you said multi-tenant database have to be designed for security because the data for all customers is held in the same database. That's the opening thought, right? Now they are therefore likely to have fewer security vulnerabilities than standard database products. Security management is simplified as there is only a single copy of the database software to be patched if a security vulnerability is discovered. Now, I said they are therefore likely to have fewer security vulnerabilities. Now, I said as a software developer, do you agree with this perspective of the architecture of security being deployed in a multi-tenant database architecture? That do you agree with it? How many marks does each assignment carry? All right, no comments. So disadvantages, we have looked at inflexibility, then security. As data for all customers is maintained in the same database, then there is a theoretical possibility that data will leak from one customer to another. In fact, there are very few instances of this happening. More seriously, perhaps, if there is a data security breach, then it affects all customers, right? Well, I think this is going to assist you in your thoughts, probably in answering the other questions. So complexity, multi-tenant systems are usually more complex than multi-instance systems because of the need to manage many users on one database. There's therefore an increased likelihood of bugs in the database or probably inconsistency too. So possible customization of service as software as a service. First, you could customize authentication, you could brand, business rules could be applied, data schema can be altered, then access control. So business may want users to authenticate using their own credentials rather than the account credentials set up by the software provider. So that is what you could put as your own style, right? So different applications have different authentication model. Like I think, well, I'm not sure if all banks, but some banks, instead of you entering your password, if your phone has a biometric maybe hardware infused or added to the features of your phone, right? When you are setting up the, I think, is it the mobile app they call it? They would have probably captured your, whatever, what's the name? Your fingerprint, yeah, as a means of identification. So instead of having to probably authenticate using password and typing, maybe your screen, your system screen has been broken, then you could just put your thumbprint and it logs in into the account. Well, maybe it's just to check your account balance, because if your screen is broken, I wonder I want to type in what you want to do. So you could also brand. Business may want a user interface that is branded to reflect their own organization. First Bank, MTN, Glo. Business rule. Now, business rule may want to be able to define their own business. Raised and I'm coming. Business may want to be able to define their own business rule and workflow that applies to their own data, right? So that's another way you can customize. Then data schema. Now, business may want to be able to extend the standard data model used in the system database to meet their own business need. For instance, some data type may just be simple abstract data type. Some may be complex, right? Some may have to be converted or meaning derived from them using feature extraction and something. So all these simple text, right, may use a form of database. Then some that you have to extract feature automatically or manually would also have a need for another database. So you can brand this as a service for them. So at least the database is going to be different from the general database. So access control. Businesses may want to be able to define their own access control model that set out the data that specific user or user group can access and the allowed operations on that data. Now, it is important that, of course, well, I'm not sure because, you know, in the process of doing one or two or having one or two interactions with some of these bankers, well, I don't know if the person is telling the truth, but it may be. He said that if a banker, for instance, a cashier, should try to log in into a very premium account, for instance, if a rookie banker like a cashier decides to log in into Dangote's account, that is immediately flagged, right? Well, the reason for this, I do not know. But there are some accounts that you could not just get into. So the level of access that you have may be different from the level of access that the branch manager may have, and also probably the all those directors and plenty people like that may have, right? So this is the user profile that you can set up for access. So you could customize this. Okay, I think there's something being typed. Yes, they always set threshold. They always set threshold according to your level. Oh, really? So Mr. Oluwatobi Dosumu says that in the bank, I'm sure you are referring to the bank. Well, I'm not too sure, but I want to assume that you are referring to a bank that they always set threshold according to your level. Okay, I see. Okay, then Mr. Nasar Bello said it is called tier level. Okay, tier level. Okay, so according to your level. So, okay, well, maybe you respond by text, or probably if I'm able to unmute you. So what happens if Dangote sends somebody to withdraw over the counter? Can I carry out an operation on his own account? They are also called priority accounts. Okay, that's from Mr. Olanite. Thank you. So, Mr. Nasir, if Dangote sends a check over the counter, can a cashier get to have transaction on that account, or do you send it to the superior officer? Okay, a tier 1 staff can't access a tier 3 customer. Really? Okay, so what tier do I belong to, Mr. Mr. Nasir? What tier do I belong to? So that I will know what I'm supposed to do about my life. I'm sure. What tier do I belong to, Mr. Nasir? So I wait your response. So this is what you can customize: profile this, profile that, level of access. Okay. Then for the stock management, you could also extend the schema for the excuse me, for the database for additional things to be added by individual users. So when you look at this schema provided, right, you have that sorry, let me go back to this other one that we saw earlier. Now you see this fellow, this is the database that is provided. So if this individual needs to extend his database here, So we could have this just extending the layer of its schema by adding a number of extensions. So if T tenant 516 does not need an extension, then this becomes blank. It doesn't need it. But if this last guy 976 needs it, then he could access it, right? So adding fields to extend the database. Now you add some extra columns to each database table and define a customer profile that maps the column's name that the customer wants to these extra columns. However, it is difficult to know how many extra columns you should include. If you have too few, customers will find that there aren't enough for what they need to do. Now, if you cater for customers who need a lot of extra column, however, you will find that most customers don't use them. So you will have a lot of wasted spaces or space in your database. So different customers are likely to need different types of column. For example, some customers may wish to have columns whose items are strings type. Others may wish to have columns that are integers, right? Some may have it to be probably other types of abstract data types, right? So you can get around this by maintaining everything as string. However, this means that either you or your customers have to provide conversion software to create items of the correct type. Okay, I think there's a message here. I'm not your banker, sir. I know your account. I know your account is in billions. Oh, amen. I think I should say amen to this. Okay, that's Mr. Nasir responding to the question I asked him, that what tier of account do I belong to? Okay. Well, I hope I'll get me billions in my account and trillions soon. All right, thank you for your response. So if you have to provide a conversion software, right, to extend database, this gets you into another form of overhead, right? So how do we now extend databases? So extending a database table database using tables. So instead of you providing a software for this conversion, maybe you force everybody to work with integers, while some are going to be sending in real, some will be sending in strings, right? There's a method using tables that you can use to address this problem. So an alternative approach to database extensibility is to allow customers to add any number of additional fields and to define the name, the type, and the values of these fields. The name and type of the names and types of these values are held in a separate table, accessed using the tenant's identifier. So it still boils further to what is called a lookup table, right? Unfortunately, using tables in this way adds complexity to the database management software. Now, extra tables must be managed and information from them integrated into the database. So that's one of the drawbacks of using tables. So you see these young people, you have T632, that's the tenant, which is the first tenant, the second tenant, and the third tenant, right? They have a need to extend their table. So they have a pointer. You have this, that's extension 1, pointing to the record in extension 1, then the tenant's name and the value that he wants to store. Now, if you see the value stored there, it's a form of string value. So string, the next table 2, when you look at table 2, you have the type to be string, integer, Boolean, date, string, and date. So that is the type of data this individual wants to use, right? Which is at variance with what has been defined, forcing all of them to be integers only. So this table has to be updated and reintegrated into the database so that you do not have too much blank spaces. So if you just extend the database arbitrarily, there is a possibility that you have several spaces that are not being made use of, and even the customers may not really need it. And those who need it may need more than what you have created as an extension. So it's better you leave them to create a form of table that is being pointed to by the address on the extension. So database security. So information from all customers is stored in the same database in a multi-tenant system. So a software bug or an attack could lead to the data of some or all customers being exposed to others. Key security issues are multi-level access control and encryption. So multi-level access control means that access to data must be controlled at both the organizational level and at the individual level. So two of you will have to take responsibility for your security. So you need to have organizational level access control. Oh, okay. So that's the meaning that Mr. Who is this guy? Let me look at that stuff again. Okay, Mr. Nasir said tiers. Okay. So that's what they call it in banking, all right? So you need to have organizational level access control to ensure that any database operation only acts on that organization's data, The individual user accessing the data should also have their own access permission, okay? I can't like dunk with this.
Yeah, it appears I've been logged out. Don't worry, I'll be in shortly. Yeah, can you hear me now? Can you hear me, please?
All right, sorry. I think that's a network glitch. I think I have a lot of messages. Okay, yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Ayoba Mahia. Kind of name is that? Olakunle Olasanya Nifemi Ajewole. Mr. Muyi, where are you? Okay. Oh. Yeah, so sorry. I think network glitch. All right. So what I was saying is okay, I'm having a thought on this okay, BVN, right? If I work in Zenith Bank, I should not be able to access or view accounts in the First Bank. So using BVN, do you think that is contributing to security glitch being witnessed in banking sector, right? And how do these 419ers, I don't know, you see a customer care person calling me and with very thick Yoruba accent or Igbo accent or Hausa accent, and will tell me it's from headquarters. How do they get the details? They will know my birth date, the mobile number I used, and my account details. How did they get that? So those bankers, that's over to you. Don't worry. Let me run through the lecture so you could give us a perspective. So we could have a practical exam. So now encryption of data. Okay, so encryption of data is a multi-tenant database resources corporate users that their data cannot be viewed by people from other companies if some kind of system failures occur. So I think I'm even correct. How will somebody in Zenith Bank be able to view my account in First Bank? Is BVN not a security glitch? So I'm not going to give you that as an assignment, but we have the bankers to speak to us on that. So we have looked at multi-tenant database. So we want to look at multi-instance. So you see there's a difference between multi-tenant, plenty tenant using one bedroom. But this one, you have plenty bedroom, then any user can use it. So multi-instance systems are systems where each customer has its own, each customer has its own system that is adapted to its needs, right? Including its own database and security controls. Multi-instance cloud-based systems are conceptually simple than multi-tenant systems and avoid security concerns such as data leakage from one organization to the other. There are two types of multi-instance system. The virtual machine-based multi-instance systems, are multi-instance systems where the software instance and database for each customer run in its own virtual machine. All users from the same customer may access the shared system database. Now, there is another container-based multi-instance system. These are multi-instance systems where each user has an isolated version of the software and database running in a set of containers. Of course, we have looked at the container description. Sorry, can the slide go full on the screen? Okay. Oh, you're not seeing what I'm displaying. All right, let me see. That means I have to exit this orientation. Screen sharing has stopped. The share window is closed. Okay, so let me go. Yeah, is it better this way? Yeah, I think somebody said you can see. Abiodun Oloyede. Okay, all right. So let's continue. All right, so my control is going to be blocking. So multi-instance systems, okay. So so there's container-based instance system. These are multi-instance systems where each user has an isolated version of the software and database running in a set of containers. Now, this approach is suited to products in which users mostly work independently with relatively little data sharing. Therefore, it is best used for software that serves individuals rather than business customers or for business products that are not data intensive. Who is it? Oh, okay, thank you. So, what are the advantages of multi-instance database? There's flexibility, security, scalability, and resilience. Of course, you know what scalability is and you know what resilience is. So flexibility, each instance of the software can be tailored and adapted to a customer's need. So it aids customization, right? Customers may use completely different database schema, and it is straightforward to transfer data from a customer database to product database. So security, each customer has their own database. So there is no possibility of data leakage from one customer to the other. But is that the only security breach that we can have? That's a question that we should be asking ourselves. So scalability, we have looked at that. So resilience, if a software failure occurs, this will probably only affect a single customer. Other customers can continue to work as if nothing happened. So disadvantages, you have the disadvantage of costs and update management. So it's more expensive to have different instances of database, right? Because of the cost of rentage. Now, because of the slow startup time, virtual machines may have to be rented and kept running continuously, even if there's very little demand for the service, right? So update management is more complex, right? To this because many instances have to be updated, different locations, right? This is particularly problematic where individual instances have been tailored to the need of specific customers. So if it is not a general software, like shared software, and you are the vendor or like you're a developer, so if you have to update for customer A, the update may not be generic, so it must be specific. With this, in this case, specific. So you have to go to customer B, customer C, and do different things. So this may be tiring, and of course, it's not user friendly as it were, right? So these are the architectural decisions that we have to take for cloud software engineering. So you have to look at the database organization. Should the software use a multi-tenant or a multi-instance database? So based on the merits on your requirement engineering, you can decide that. Scalability and resilience. What are the software scalability and resilience requirements? Is it going to be increasing or decreasing if it fails? Will the failure result in fatal consequences? Then the structures. Now, should the software structure be monolithic or service-oriented? Now, then, a cloud platform. What cloud platform should be used for the development and delivery of the software? So, questions to be asked or to ask when choosing a database organization. The first thing you look at is the target audience or the customers. What are the requirements or what are the different data that they deal with in their organization? So this will allow you to plan a schema. Yeah, okay, I think there's a pop-up on my screen. So this will allow you to plan the schema of the database for a particular customer. Then transaction requirement, is it a critical requirement or is it just a minimal requirement? So this helps you to determine what kind of database to put. Then the database size and connectivity, how large is a typical database used by customer? How many relationships are there between database items? A multi-tenant model is usually best for very large database, as you can focus effort on optimization of performance. But when security hits you, then you understand that you can choose differently. So database interoperability. Will customer wish to transfer information from existing databases? What are the differences in schema between these and the possible multi-tenant databases? What software support will they expect to do the data transfer? If customers have many different schemas, a multiple instance database should be used. Now, of course, I was with one of the, well, it was one of the vice presidents of, not vice presidents, it was one of the executive of CPN. So we're traveling and we got talking. So he said that we have different instances of database of our information in Nigeria, and that's why we do not have a central database. That, of course, he was invited to Abuja to create a national database. So in the process of defending, they asked him that, okay, how is he going to solve the issue of interoperability of the maybe the representation in these databases? Of course, as a database expert, he explained to them. And of course, he was starting to clean the data when suddenly the contract was terminated. Now, the question is that why don't we want to have a central database that can be useful for everybody at least for several or different purposes: crime control, tax refunds, and tax payment and all that. All right. So are you using a service-oriented architecture for your system? Can customers' database be split into a set of individual service database? If so, use centralized multi-instance database. So scalability and resilience. The scalability of a system reflects the ability to adapt automatically to changes in the load on that system, right? The resilience of a system reflects the ability to continue to deliver critical services in the event of system failure or malicious system use. Now, you achieve scalability in a system by making it possible to add new virtual servers that are scaling out, or increase the power of a system server scaling up in response to increasing load. In cloud-based system, scaling out rather than scaling up is the normal approach used. Your software has to be organized so that individual software components can be replicated and run in parallel. To achieve resilience, you need to be able to restart your software quickly after a hardware or software failure. So using a side-by system, that's, I think, in one of the lectures we did, that's introducing, what do we call it? When you introduce redundancy, it can help you to mitigate or add to the resilience of your software system, as it were, right? All right, so resilience relies on redundancy. Replicas of the software and data are maintained in different locations. Database updates are mirrored. Okay, I think I have the message here. Notes. YouTube link for the ongoing class. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lanite. All right. So a system monitor continually check the system status. It can switch to the standby system automatically if the operational system fails. You should use redundant virtual servers that are not hosted on the same physical computer and locate servers in different locations. Ideally, these servers should be located in different data centers. If a physical server fails, or if there is a wider data center failure, then operations can be switched automatically to a software copy elsewhere. But what is the consistency of the data that is somewhere? Do you constantly update, right? So these are the things you need to look at. So system structures. So an object-oriented approach to software engineering has been extensively used for the development of client-server system built around a shared database. The system itself is logically a monolithic system with distribution across multiple servers running large software components. The traditional multi-tier client-server architecture is based on this distributed system model. Now, the alternative to a monolithic approach to software organization is a service-oriented approach, where the system is decomposed into fine-grained stateless services. Because it is stateless, each service is independent and can be replicated, distributed, and migrated from one server to another. Now, why is this possible? Why is this possible? Now, this is possible because of containerization. That's correct. Sorry. So the service-oriented approach is particularly suitable for cloud-based software with services deployed in containers. Okay. So cloud platform. So we have seen, sorry. Okay, so cloud platforms. Something is blocking here. So cloud platforms include general purpose cloud such as Amazon these days, or lesser known platform oriented around specific applications such as that. Now, there are also smaller national providers that provide more limited services, but who may be willing to adapt their service to the needs of different customers. There is no best platform, and you should choose a cloud provider based on your background and experience, the type of product that you are developing, and the expectation of your customers. Now, you need to consider both technical issues and business issues when choosing a cloud platform. So these are the things we have looked at in considering multi-tenant, multi-tenant. Then when you have an individual using just his own database by himself. So these are the technical issues you need to look at in the choice of cloud platform: the expected load, the resilience, then the supported cloud services, then privacy. Of course, this has also been looked at in previous discussions. So business issues in cloud platform, of course, you need to consider your costs, your experience, then the service level agreements, portability and cloud migration, then the customers that you are deploying this service for. So in conclusion, the cloud is made up of a large number of virtual servers. Okay, Mr. Olanite, please, I need you to start picking up their attendance. So you could tell them to, you can see some people are just joining the class when it's time for attendance. Now, this is not a good practice, really. And I hope you will desist from it. So please, you can start sending in your attendance as instructed by Mr. Olanite. So please follow his format. Yeah, I said your surname, a comma, and your middle name, your last name going forward. All right, so let me continue. So the cloud is made up of a large number of virtual servers that can, of course, I think I don't need to really bother myself looking at all this. So over to the bankers, the issue of BVN, is that not a security risk for us as individuals? So if you are conversant with such procedures, or you're a banker, please, let's have your opinion. If you can just give us some insight into it. Okay, Mr. Nasir Bello, thank you. So let me see. I can unmute you. So ask to unmute. Okay. In the interim.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir. First of all, I'm not a banker, but I have
okay.
an overview of the transaction level of what happened there. So Now, for BVN issue, BVN, I think for every bank, they only have access to the customer in their own cabal. Now, for customer in Access Bank, you cannot view what is happening in EcoBank in terms of the BVN. So the only thing that the BVN is actually helping most of them to do now, it comes to the terms of the loan recovery system, which they are trying to build. Saying that if customer in Zenith Bank is owing Access Bank, now there's a particular mandate that is being ongoing for every loan, for every borrower now that you have to sign, which is called the GSI or GIS mandate. It all depends on the way the banks have modified their own business rules. So what happened is for every customer, based on your BVN, this mandate allows them to be able to debit your account that is linked to that BVN. So far today, it is only CBN that has the overview of all the skeletal accounts in relation to the BVN. So for customer in Access Bank through the BVN, you cannot see what is happening in Diamond or in Zenith or in GT Bank.
Well, I think I have a contrary opinion. Yeah, I went to Zenith Bank to be precise, and I wanted to open an account in Zenith Bank or so. I have one account in Zenith Bank, so I wanted to open another. So I told the customer care person that I have an account in Zenith Bank. He said no, that she wants to know my account in another bank. So I gave her my BVN, and she was able to see my account balance in the other bank. How did that happen? Do you have a respondent? Okay, Mr. Omolade Ajayi. Okay, sorry, Mr. Omolade Ajayi. So you can mute yourself, Mr. Omolade.
I'm a lady, sir. Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Not a problem. We're in IT, we get that almost every day. Okay, a quick one. I think the BVN facility has given the banks the right to get access to that database. They're not going to give you confidential information, but the balance is something they have access to. I also agree with you that BVN has taken it a step further. So what happens today is there's no integrated system, but there's a platform that CBN has created to say, if a guy is owing you in your bank, you can inform us. So immediately you inform us, all the other banks will be alerted and their account will be blocked. There's a facility for that, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't borrowing money from them, and I was wondering how she got to know my details.
Sorry, that's why I'm a bit worried. How did that individual see the transaction in my other bank just to open an account, not to take a loan? Okay, I think we have one, Mr. Olaiwola Akingbe. So you could mute yourself.
Actually, the Nigerian banking system is way advanced. We have NIBS, which is Nigeria Interbank Settlement System. So they are in between almost all banks in Nigeria. So once they kind of send the BVN, which is a unique identity of, with your BVN, they can get all the accounts you have in all banks and get some basic details. So I think that's.
I see. Okay.
So that is how we are able to.
How do these guys that call?
transfer.
I'm sure you are aware that some people just pick up their phone and say, hello, I am this from First Bank. And even the intonation gives the person away. And you say, come, you are working at First Bank, Zenith Bank. So how did you get my details? So how do they get details?
There is the NIPS is advanced. That's how they can do an IP transfer from one bank to another. So they can just make a call and get some requests based on that BVN.
Whoa. All right. Do we have another opinion? Mubi something. You could unmute yourself. And there's one, Mr. Korede. Okay, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, I just want to input something to that. The central database of the BVN, there's an identity. Each BVN record server is different from the, but there's a link. Since each of the customers has a BVN, then the primary key link any query. Once they query any customer in their own base without BVN, then he query the database because he has a link. The primary key, that BVN is not a primary key for every customer. Then once they query it, any record for any bank in which that customer has, then it will actually bring it out.
Okay.
That is why once they put the BVN, that's a BVN database, we query all the servers. Since it's the primary key in which all the server has it, all the bank server has it, then he query anybody that have that primary key. Since that primary key is unique, then the record will show. Whatever amount he has in account, the bank has access to it using the central system, the BVN system.
Okay, so how do they get information about me, my date of birth, and criminals are now calling you?
Exactly. No, viewers can now, what we have is that phishing and other form of security threat can come in. They can actually some internal record, internal threat can actually report as a link with fraudulent people. Then they can have a record of some customers and put them at random, and they just test it as send a text to everybody. Then once they put that at random, whoever falls victim, that's all. That's the kind of style they use.
All right, thank you. So there's another person, Mr. Korede. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Okay, Mr. Roland.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me,
okay,
sir? Hello,
Mr. Korede, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. Okay, good. I want to say about BVN and SIM card. As for BVN, I do not know how that Zenith Bank staff was able to access your account in other banks, but I know that if anybody has some of these fraudulent people, they have your SIM card, they can have your BVN number. There is a code they will press. They put it in the phone, even if it's a Nokia 3310 phone. There's a code they will press. You access your bank, your BVN, and all your bank details. They can obtain your balance and all that. It's just a matter of code. They have all the codes with them. Those guys. There was a guy that was caught by police that made this confession sometimes ago, talking about. So there is a need for every individual to be locking their SIM. If your SIM is locked, so if they press this code, it will ask for the SIM code before they can access your BVN or any other thing. So once anybody's phone is lost, once they grab a SIM card, they can move the money within a twinkle of an eye. As for accessing BVN and every other details in your account.
All right, thank you. Mr. Francis Osao.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, please.
Yeah, hope I'm audible.
Yes.
So in the case of I totally agree with what my colleague talked about NIBS. So NIBS is like a central body that basically manage transactions between interbanks. Now, the same way you can walk into any bank and carry out BVN registration, right? And it saves to a central location that all the banks can save to. In the same way, the banks can retrieve information from that central location. So they all have APIs and keys that are given to them to be able to retrieve information from that central location and to be able to store information in that central location. So there's a central location that all your data, BVN data is housed. Then things like fingerprint that is even attached to your BVN. if the bank are putting a special request, they can have access to an API to validate fingerprint and all those other things that in that BVN information that is stored in that store location. So basically, most of these 419 guys, either they have someone that have leaked information, or there was even a period that BVN information was leaked. The DB was leaked at a certain point in time. So from those connections or from those bank staffs, they can get those information. It's not really that difficult if you have the right connections.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Gostime Umezi, you say thank you, sir. Are you telling me that time is up? Mr. Gostime. All right, so Mr. Gostime has alluded to the fact that the time is up. So at this rate, we thank all the contributors and we thank you for your informed opinion. So we hope that going forward, we're able to relate one or two things to what we have learned, probably as an individual or collectively. All right, so class rep, we end the class now, so we meet next week by God's grace. Thank you all. I am ghost time in school. Mr. Lanite, what does this mean? Oh, when are you submitting the assignments? You submit before next class. Oh, you said Mr. God's time is here with you, but you just type something. Say thank you, sir. So I was wondering, probably was reminding me of. Can we have the assignment again? Can we submit assignment? The last assignment has been submitted. Oh, Mr. Lanite, sorry. No, you can speak now. You are co-host, have you been logged out? And let me see. Oh, you have been removed as co-host. How come? Okay, so you can speak now.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. I'm here. Last time is also here too, sir. So he has the mic now, sir.
Oh, okay.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, please.
Yes, sir. No, we are looking for me and my network was locked out, so that's why I came to report that I'm here, sir.
No. I saw a response from you. You
I
said
was
thank you,
just
sir.
appreciate you, sir. Yeah, I was just appreciating you, sir.
Oh, welcome is on 5 dots. I saw the message 5 o'clock on the dot.
No, sir. I was just appreciating, sir.
So I just felt that as
just
usual,
to know that I'm still here, sir.
You say I should get out of the class.
No, sir. It's not.
Okay, I think it's not 5 o'clock, Shab. It's 5:05. All right, so everybody can go home.
Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
I've seen some questions. Can you submit the assignment? Please do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Olanite is to. You are muted again.
No, sir, I'm not muted, sir. I can hear you,
okay. Sir. Okay, so I think they should have submitted the assignment to you. Why did they refuse?
They are talking about the new assignment, sir. They've submitted the previous one, sir.
Oh, they will submit that one next week now. Okay. Maybe during the class, before my own class, so when you see yourselves.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
All right. For somebody, Mr. Nasir is asking, can we submit with the last assignment? Well, I don't know what that means anyways. Yeah, then Abiodun Oloyede. Can we have the assignment again? Please ask Mr. Olanite or Mr. Gostime. He should be able to tell you that. All right, thank you for your time. Have a pleasant day. What's grace on the last assignment? I give it to Mr. Olanite now. If you can find him. Let's see. All right, I'll be blessed. Oh, thank you, Mr. Messi or Mrs. Messi. Okay, sir.